Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. But I mean, his presentation skills, when he gave the pitch deck, so to speak, at the board meeting, I mean, it looked like we were at IBM or Microsoft and, flashing shit and all kinds of stuff. He knows how to do that because that's what he's done for 15 years at a very high level. Okay, takeaways from our young German friend. Yes, sir.
One question regarding cold calls. Is it, and the numbers is for example, 1600 is a single company?
No, he's called 1,600 different people.
Different people.
Different
company, okay.
And a cold call is not you leave a message.
Yeah.
A cold call, talk to a human being that's a decision maker. And it's very, very dramatic that he kept track of all this. I mean, he's got all these stats and he can... Yes, sir, in the back.
If one works 60 hours a week, which I can relate to in your normal job, and when do you do all your calls? Like in the late evening?
No, lunchtime, in the morning before work, during his breaks, and at night, and on the weekends. We've got an Army guy, Captain America, who did closed 2 deals in 117 days. He's working. He's a captain in the Air Force, a dental officer at the Pentagon, and you can't bring a phone into the Pentagon, so he couldn't make calls in the Pentagon. So he was on the way to work. He'd leave the Pentagon during lunchtime, as I understand it, to make calls, and then at night, he lives someplace in Virginia. And when Josh was doing it, he had a 60-hour a week job. And he worked 60 hours a week on top of that for QLA, but he was making calls from the West Coast to the East Coast, taking advantage of the time differentiation. But these guys are taking longer, as opposed to the 73-day guy who wasn't working a full-time job, and he got it done in 73 days. And you're going to hear, when does Tom? Tomorrow, yeah, a young kid from Canada that did in 81 days. Yes?
Is he running these companies he's buying now, or did he have a CEO?
No, he is acting as the first 4 deals haven't got anybody that's, I don't know if the right word is CEO material. So they're being run more or less by the 2 industry experts until we find somebody. But I mean, he's going to have to hire a general manager at the very least, because there's too many of them now. And if I understand correctly, I mean, December, this is his last month in his regular job, because January he is running this thing full time. And for those of you that have done business in Germany, and for the one German young man, I mean, hair professor, doctor, and I mean, nobody calls them by the first name. And I'm legitimately a professor as well, but I don't want to be a hair professor. Just, boss is fine. BOSS is, that's fine to call me. But it's very formalized. But after when we went to dinner, and I told somebody this, and somebody said, I like espresso martinis. And they started down in espresso martinis. This is after a lot of wine and alcohol. And then they're not quite as formal. The Germans aren't quite as formal. And if you ever want to you go to Oktoberfest one time. And I have passed out and thrown up at Oktoberfest, myself personally, and carried out on a stretcher. They just put you on a stretcher and they carry you right out into the medical tent. Okay? And so they know how to loosen up. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, in the back.
So during the due diligence, you mentioned reading the financial statements, etc. So at this point, we're taking...
That's not that. I mean, no. The first deal, the board did the due diligence because it was a little deal, and it fell apart anyway. And the other one, the Ernst & Young did the due diligence, but I mean, there's beyond the financials. Remember, if the financials they present you and the tax returns are within 5 or 10% of each other, that's a good sign. Okay, that means that they probably didn't cheat on their taxes. But now you're going to go in and you're going to see how many healthcare professionals are they? How many patients are they seeing a day? I think the 18 minutes is the average in one of these deals. That's all that the healthcare professional spends with the patient. What's the turnaround time? How often are they re-seeing the patients? But more importantly to me is accounts receivable. I mean, how are they 30, 60, 90, 180 days? I mean, I don't believe anybody's going to pay after 180 days. So, I mean, one of the kids right now has got a deal with $6 million in accounts receivable over 180 days. Well, I mean, even that's probably worth $500,000. They're losing $5.5 million because they're never going to pay. And so the seeding or the average age of the receivables. What are the payables? Are they paying their bills on time? And when you're dealing with the big firms, they're squeezing you for cash flow. They want you to pay in 15 to 30 days when they're paying you in 60 to 90 days. And that's just the cash flow squeeze, and that's just part of life. And when you're dealing with like big hospitals or the National Health Service in this country or big insurance companies, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to squeeze you to the very end before they pay. But your suppliers want to get paid now. And as you heard, the big four accounting firm is invoicing them. You do the deal, and then at the end of the next quarter, you pay, because these big firms aren't squeezed for cash flow. They're not worried about it. They've got plenty of money. You don't have plenty of money. And so you want them to pay quick and you want to pay late. But it doesn't work that way. They don't pay quick and you can't pay late. And the professionals, the experts within the industry understand that. And they'll say this is too much. They've got to cut down on payables. You're not going to collect any of that money. And part of the due diligence is a euphemism for knocking the price down. Well, you may carry this at $6 million on the balance sheet, but it's not worth $6 million. It's worth $1 million or $500,000, or may not be worth anything. You also look to see what kind of lawsuits. So they have, patient lawsuits. I mean, malpractice kind of stuff. Their insurance company. Insurance companies don't like to pay malpractice policies off or claims. And if they pay claims, it's slow, if at all. And so these are some of the things you look at. But your industry experts and your accountants, because your accountants are going to be, their specialty is going to be healthcare, home care in this particular case. Another question in the back.
How big are the companies that he bought?
Between 1 and 3.5 million euros.
So he's got about 10 million now, I guess.
Yeah, correct. So he's got to his account about 3.5 million, because he has, I want to say 63%. I think it's 63%. 63%. And the lawyer he's alluding to is a big luminary in law, a big fucking hitter. And not like the president of the country, but when he tells the other law firm, you're not really up to, what are you going to do? They knock 20%. He probably could have jacked them down more. But the good thing about the meetings is they're very meticulous there, and they're professional. I mean, to the nth degree, they're very professional, and so that's refreshing, as opposed to you go to New York and you're choking each other on the fucking table, and the beast, you hit the beast before he comes to the meeting, You ambush him in the fucking parking lot. Yeah. Or Chicago. There's a reason why the St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened in Chicago, when Al Capone gunned all these people down against the wall. There's still a lot of that business ethics, or lack thereof, in Chicago. But another question. Yes, sir.
So he did all the deals on owner finance. Can you talk a little bit about?
I'm not going to explain owner finance again to you.
No, I understand what owner.
If I remember correctly, the average was about 35% owner finance on the deals, all the deals, and cash flow did cover. I mean, if taking a third of the purchase price out, if your cash flow doesn't cover the debt service, you got a bad deal. You got a bad deal. And it doesn't take you don't have to go to the, potential company you're going to acquire to figure that out. You look at their tax returns and their financials. You've been to the banks, and what are we lending here? Okay, in this particular case, Deutsche Bank or whoever it was, 4 to 5 times EBITDA is our sweet spot. We want to lend. You look at their financials. Well, fuck, they're nowhere near that. Next, you don't go. They can't change their fucking cash flow. There's nothing to convince. The cash flow is what the cash flow is. Now, that's not to say you can't. Most of these small deals, they have no marketing effort, or their marketing is from the 80s. So you can drive top-line revenue fairly easily. And now he's got 4 deals all in one area, more or less. He can reduce expenses, have one insurance company, have one this, one that. And then once he gets his feet on the ground, and starts to learn just a tiny bit about the industry. We don't want to be experts. You're not going to be able to get write a PhD paper on running these deals. You just want, because there's a lot of obvious things. It's like I walk into a hospital or a big clinic, and there's 3 nurses and 2 receptionists standing there drinking coffee. I mean, I haven't walked in, well, this is a Trump exaggeration. I haven't walked into a fucking hospital where I didn't see at least 15 to 25 people that they didn't need within the first 5 minutes of being there. So, I mean, it's easy. I told you, Sally turned around a big company this years ago, just fired 75% of the employees. Went right behind the bottom line cash flow. I mean, we were a cash flowing son of a bitch literally overnight. And we had to explain it to the bank. Well, you fire all these employees, and we're not paying all these salaries, it goes to almost all of it goes to the bottom line. And the bankers are going, well, we could have done that ourselves. Yeah, you could have, but you hired us instead. People don't like, that's called a drastic measure. I don't consider it. To me, it's a first line measure. I know drastic measures, Jewish lightning, burn the building down. That's a drastic measure, okay? Firing people is just part of business. But now it's not part of business. You can't get fired at a big company unless you're fucking a donkey in the lobby. You cannot get sacked. It's impossible because of the human resource laws now in most places. But if you're humping a donkey in the lobby, oh, well, let's make a note of that. We got to have 2 witnesses, let's get a report. And then it still takes 6 months to fire the guy. Don't you see something fundamentally wrong with that?
Yes.
What else about, does he sound German? No? Yes, sir.
On those first 3 deals, do you know what the aggregate legal and accounting fees were roughly?
Roughly on the little one, 70 to 80 grand with the accounting and legal together. Now, and they're doing this boilerplate, but they charge you like it's not boilerplate. The second, the third, and the fourth are all virtually the same. And they only push the send button on the computer, but they're not charging you less and less and less. They're charging you more and more and more because the deals are bigger and bigger and bigger. Don't complain. Remember, it's not your money. We're not going to be frivolous with it, but the deals are costing 175 to 150 grand in cost for due diligence, roughly speaking, at this $1, $2, $3, $4 million level. And if you get this big outrageous bill, then you show it to your accountant that's on the board, in this case, a big hitter, and he makes one phone call, and what are you joking? What are you kidding me? What are you smoking? And all of a sudden you get a new invoice and the bill is reduced. Now, I bitch about, when I call up and if I demand a discount, I probably get it, but just out of bullying, whereas the this lawyer is he's a great guy. He's ex-Slaughter and May, and that's why you get people that you don't have to explain about. You don't want to, fourth year out of law school. Who gives a shit? He doesn't know anything. More importantly, he doesn't know anybody. You want people to be able to make phone calls and get stuff done. And now that he's done these deals, E&Y loves him, the lawyers love him, the people on the board are, all of a sudden their contact lists are being made available because we've performed as a group. And I did nothing really. They did 99% of the work. And the board, he's put together, they're good guys, and no gals on this board. That doesn't mean anything, but there's no gals on this board. What else about Andre? Yes, sir.
Same board for the 279 days?
Yeah, same guys. Didn't lose anybody. Now, 279 seems like a long time, but guys working full time. The board knows he's working full time. He's keeping them updated with periodic emails, update emails, which you have in your boilerplates, what it looks like, but it's basically 2-3 paragraphs. They know, because they have a lot of transaction experience, and he doesn't, that these things take longer. They take longer, and they're more aware of that than you are. I tell you, I'm always surprised when these deals get done. Some of them get done as quickly as they do. And the fact that the one deal now, next year sometime, we're going to move from the area that we are to another section of Germany. We're going to have CEO though, at the minimum a general manager because you can't manage long distance kids. They may work in the movies, but it's tough as hell. Yes, sir.
Regarding the CEO thing, so far I understood that we give up to 10% to the CEO, but in this case we don't.
He didn't give.
Even have one.
No, correct. He doesn't.
So we don't need.
No. If you find one, I would rather you hire somebody early. The right guy or the right gal, even though you only got 2 little acquisitions. Then after you got 6 acquisitions, and then you can't find them because they've gone and taken another job.
It's nice to have, but
yeah, and but his industry experts have done a good job. His CFO's done a good job. Well, the whole board, everybody's done a good job, and he's learned a lot. But he's step by step, just like I tell you. But all the Germans are step by step. They follow instructions well. And again, remember, we're lucky they didn't wake Hitler up from his nap, or we'd all be speaking German. Yes.
What kind of terms came with the settlements?
What kind of terms? Well, if he's taken back a note for 35%. Oh, you mean we covered it the last day, but I want you to push off. The best is 10-year paper, a balloon in the 10th year, no interest first 3 years, interest in some principal amortized on a 25-year note for the next 4 or 5 years, and 40 or 50% balloon payment at the end.
And subordinated.
Yeah, correct. And by the way, seller's finance is always going to be subordinated to senior debt. And they don't. I'm not telling you not to explain to them what senior debt means, but they mostly won't understand what that means. But any commercial debt, or almost any commercial debt, is going to be over the top of a note from a seller. They're subordinated to everything. And the worst case scenario is, and it'll come up. But what if you fail in the 3rd year? Okay. They get the company back. So, but now when we got guys in their 80s and 90s, they're not interested in getting the fucking company back. Everybody understand that? So you got an 80-year-old guy. He's got you're never going to get an 80-year-old guy with a 10-year note. But let's just, for movie, since we're in the movies, you got an 80-year-old guy with a 10-year note. Okay, and in the fifth year you fail. In other words, you run the business in the toilet or you kill the business. So now the 85-year-old man gets his business back. That's criminal, really, because he doesn't want the business back at 85. But they do get the business back. So maybe by that time his grandson can take the business. But if you got an 85-year-old guy who's got no kids and no grandchildren, well, maybe you can give it to the Catholic Church then, or you can give it to the synagogue, or you can give it to your mosque. But the downside is the older they are, the less they're in love with the idea of getting the business back. Oh, I'm being sarcastic. They don't like it at all. They don't want the business back. But some of the younger guys, 55, fine, they'll think to themselves, well, if the dipshit pays me 7 years out of 10 years and I get the business back, well, then I'll resell it to some other moron. I know guys that have sold businesses 3, 4, 5 times and take back the paper. Take the business back in the oil and gas business. Because anybody can manage an oil and gas company when oil is going from 40 to 70. Hardly anybody can manage it when it goes from 70 to 40. That's when you really got to understand the business. And most of the guys and gals that are buying oil and gas assets now that aren't oil and gas people, get killed in the downswing. When oil went from, in August of 2014, when oil went from about $120 a barrel to 7 months later to $26, $30 a barrel, 5,000 wells in the North Sea weren't just literally underwater, they were figuratively underwater because they had borrowed money at $80, $90, $100 a barrel, and now oil was selling at $30 a barrel. There was 5,000 potential distressed sales in the North Sea alone. Right now, I talked to an oil and gas guy at the last seminar, a petroleum engineer, and he says it's about 50, depending on in the North Sea, it's 50, 60 pounds to get the oil to the surface. About between 50 and 60 pounds to get the oil. That's not moving it. That's just to get it to the water, top of the water. And then whatever other, downstream stuff you're doing. In America, with fracking, it's about 45 or 50. Now, when you start adding water on, it's exponentially more expensive. And deep drilling is exponentially on top of exponentially. You make mistakes at 20,000 feet under the water, big money you're spending. Now, I was smart enough, in hindsight, I drilled 600 foot in the Gulf of Mexico on a plateau. It's called the shelf. The shelf goes out 200, 250 miles from the Louisiana, Texas, and those. But I didn't go off in the big boys. The big fucking dogs where it's 30, 40, $50 million a pop. A hole. I stayed in the shallow where it's 3, 7, 10 million, still make a lot of money. There's another question. Yes, sir.
One question regarding the incorporation of the company. So you collected the board after 23 days, then the first... He
had his board together, his potential board. They weren't real board members yet because the company was not incorporated. The company was a GmbH, wasn't put together. They were potentially going to get 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever they were going to get. Then, when he had the 5 deals together, 5 LOIs, and he contacted me, and I had 1 day, and it was in 2 weeks from then, and everybody else, we came together for a board meeting to form the GmbH, to issue the shares to the board members, etc., and put in the articles of incorporation, all the paperwork that you do to form the company, and that was all at that meeting in Munich.
But you also presented the company to Ernst & Young, etc.
Oh, no, he had already been to Ernst & Young. They approved it. He'd already been to the lawyers. That approval process had already been. In fact, some cases, although I don't think it happened with him, the accountants and lawyers say they're going to give you delayed fees and 3 months pass. When are we going to do a fucking deal? That does happen from time to time, but because they had to go through an approval process to get it approved for delayed fees, roll fee, and then nothing happens. So at the first partners meeting at the Big Four, and they, hey, Joe, what, we approved this guy. Where's the business? On the phone, Andreas, oh, we're working, you know. So that does happen from time to time, but not too often. And yes, did I answer your question?
Yes, but the question is, he talked already with Ernst Young.
He already interviewed many accounting firms, and they approved.
Yes, he already prepared this one, but they didn't want to know, okay, which the owner of the company, etc., to which company want to send them the invoice.
Oh, no, well, okay, I understand what you're saying. They're not engaging with anybody because you don't have a company.
Yes, it's nothing.
Okay, no, but it's the same as the private equity model. There's nothing, I mean, when the private equity starts and they're in the formation phase, I mean, and they're bringing guys in that are going to raise the money, and then they're going to find investments invested in over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. It's the way they understand. You'll get a letter, email that says, pursuant to the formation of NewCo or GmbH, NewCo, whatever, this is what the terms that we agree to act for you. Okay, yes, in the back. No, you, yeah.
To put together all the paperwork, incorporation and articles of incorporation.
Whatever, yeah.
This can easily cost more than 5,000 or 8,000 euros.
Yeah.
Who's doing the work?
Oh, the lawyers.
The lawyers we recruited.
Correct.
They do this.
Yes, they do it. Now, for you, they probably won't. But everybody else in Germany, they lawyers. Yes, he's right. It's 10 grand.
This we have to pay like from the beginning.
No, you pay nothing. No, you would have to pay. Yeah. You pay because you're going to finance. Let's say the deal is €1,450,000, the first deal, and you're going to have 50 to 100,000 euros in fees. So what you're going to finance is not 1,450,000. You're going to finance 1,550,000 because you're going to have to pay the fees. Plus, you want to finance it for more because you want. Now, I know you don't need any money, so everybody else, but you want some, as they used to say, in Louisiana, we were looking at brothels many years ago. I need some goddamn walking around money, you know? And he was a pimp that owned these things. And I need some goddamn walking around money. The walking around money, we're going to overfinance.
No.
And if they can do it in Germany, you can do it any place. I can still remember that notary. Yes, sir.
Was he able to overfinance these first two deals?
Yes. But he's not starving as much as you guys. I mean, he has a very well-paid job that he worked, and so he's not sucking on that exhaust pipe. You know, he's not hallucinating, trying to tell himself that this exhaust is good for him. See, some of you have been on the exhaust pipe so goddamn long, you think you've lost so many brain cells that this is good. Honey, this is good, and there's nothing wrong with me. Of course, in India, they still, something, you know, the Indians, the reason why they do that is because of the brain cells they lost from sucking on so much exhaust pipe. I can't do it as good as I used to be able to do it when I used to live there. And when I do it in a meeting, you know, they always do it. But when I do it, nobody laughs. They just thought, well, I guess he's doing it too now. And if you ask somebody in India why you do it, there's no good reason. Other than they've been doing it for 10,000 years. I think it's because they got to lose something. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Okay, any other questions? Andreas, almost perfect. Textbook case, almost perfect. Not quite perfect, because he mentioned a couple of mistakes he made. And one of was when he was meeting these guys, and he was doing it because meeting them at their place of work. You have little or no leverage there. That's why, and then, of course, it's in the templates. You use your big accountants and big lawyers. And when they walk in, I've never been to the offices there of his accountants, but they're supposedly very ornate, oak, wood, panel, and all this stuff. It's impressive. You're impressing. You're really bullying the potential seller. Okay, thank you, YouTube.